Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We are at property address 14333 Southeast Morningside Court here in Clackamas. I describe everything in this case as if you're just standing in the parking lot or driveway facing the front door of the home. We are on the right side of the house, but very near the rear right corner of the home. We're dropping into a 4-inch ABS clean. I know I had some questions about pipe diameter. You're at least 4-inch pipe on the exterior. Once we camera out to the main lateral and shut the water off, we'll reverse direction and go back into the home a little ways to see if it remains 4-inch going back into the house or if it drops to 3-inch right as we go through the foundation wall. But you have 4-inch pipe on the exterior. All right, transitioning here to 4-inch 3034 PVC just right out of the gate. In a lot of cases, when you swap to 4-inch, you often will swap to 3034 when you start getting rather close to the main lateral. Well, we'll see. They may have just felt like putting in the extra good pipe right out of the gate. A little bit of standing water here. That's going to drain out to probably around 1/16 of an inch of water. That's nothing concerning at all. It's a very, very clean sewer line too. Homeowners have been doing a good job keeping this thing clean. Not dumping all the bacon grease down the sink. Another little belly there. Again, pop out of it quickly. It's a little more significant than the first one, but that one too, quite minor. Got some extra water running here. Got the garden hose going full bore. So we've got some standing water sporadically throughout the line. All right, I'm going to try and go locate here. Unfortunately, hitting the extent of my camera. I'm going to go see if we can. We'll probably have to drain the line out here and see if we can hunt down a secondary clean out access as we come back in to advance further.
But Jeff said that we can't find.
Alrighty, so where we're stopping up right now, I'm sitting maybe a foot from the sidewalk edge, and at any given point, I can see about another approximately 5 feet down line. So where we're essentially stopping, all said and done right now, is at the street curb. We're sitting within about 5 feet of that as it sits right now. So zero signs of any flow problems beyond that point. Not that there couldn't theoretically be something, you know, some kind of issue right here you've got an offset. The bummer of this one is the water is standing to the point where you really can't see much beyond the fact that it's got an offset joint in it. You know, sometimes you get an offset joint and a root intrusion, for instance. In a lot of cases, it's just simply an offset. The line changes pitch there pretty effectively. I've just turned the water back on here. My camera right now is so far out, without the line lubed up, it won't move. But I'll try and push back over the top of that joint really quick to get another look at it. Just from a flow standpoint, you know, sometimes we don't get the most perfect view of some of these things. Unless there is for instance, a root intrusion, something really obvious, it shows me the line's open to the ground, or something higher risk like a root. Offset joints at this distance, it requires a lot of doing on the homeowner's side for an offset this far from the home to ever contribute to a blockage. And by that I mean abusing the sewer line like crazy. If you can imagine a blockage even theoretically happening at this, you've got to fill up 170 feet of pipe. Just to get back to the foundation wall, and in doing so, you create an unbelievable amount of head pressure. There are not a lot of blockages that can withstand 170 feet of pipe filling up behind it, unless it's made of a whole roll of paper towels or something of that nature, which obviously you don't want going down your line. So we're gonna let that water drain off here for just a second, then we'll get a better gander at that spot. I pulled back and put a marking down, partially just for reference purposes. It's quite a shallow line. Your average line at this distance, in an ideal scenario where everything's purpose built for a line this long, on a flat property like this, you're usually in the 7-8 foot deep category. We're about 5.5 feet deep here. It's pretty shallow. So I'm not seeing any obvious like root strands. We are in line with the big, huge tree. As you face into the property from the street, there's a huge tree that's kind of on the left side of the property from that orientation. It would not totally surprise me if the roots in that tree are part of the reason why that joint's a little out of whack. Sometimes they'll grow underneath the line or over top it and kind of push on it. But I'm not seeing any obvious root strands going to the joint. So being that offset there is at 170 feet, there's not even enough buildup in this line to recommend $5 in drain cleaning on it. That's not something I'm going to recommend a repair on. If we had a big root ball going through it, I'd feel differently about it. But honestly, even with a big root ball, 170 feet of pipe is a lot of pipe to fill up in a backup scenario. There's not a lot of stuff that can withstand it. So the offset there it's not even quite an inch. And the fact that my camera jumps over it at 170 feet, where you lose a lot of leverage at that distance, stuff is getting over the top of that with very little problem at all. But there is always a concern at some point down the road, that big tree there, it could find its way into the line. I'm hoping as we come back in here, we can hunt down a secondary clean out access. By code, there should be one every 100 feet. Right up ahead there at the joint there, that just looks like some... I'm going to do a little reviewing of this video at home in better lighting. There's some stuff protruding out the joint. By and large, looks like some cobwebs and things, which is very common at pipe joints. But I do want to take a second look. I've done over 25,000 sewer scopes. If you were just to simply tell me how long this line was and show me the type of property you had, the layout, the fact that it's not on a hillside, I would basically guarantee you there's going to be noise in it. Not that it can't be done without settling. It takes an extraordinarily good install all to not have any settling on a line this length. So it looks like we do have an access point here. I'm going to try and hunt it down. Well, I have done my darndest here to try and expose this thing. I tried to do a nice, neat little circular cutout. So as you face the house from the street, different orientation that I'm starting with, it might just help you hunt this thing down a little better. Just about straight out from the front left corner, if you consider the part of the house that faces the road, the front of the home, pretty much straight out to the left of that front left corner, close to it, you'll see a green circle I drew on the ground. I did a nice little neat shovel cut out there of the grass so I could place it back over the top of that area. I'm wetting the ground down to loosen it up, and once you get below the topsoil, it's just like compacted concrete. It feels like it's a layer of clay down there, but I'm getting down to about a foot deep and not hitting anything that resembles a clean out cap. So it looks like there's a clean out down there. It's right where it should be, smack dab at 100 feet. It's just, it looks like it's deep. I mean, it could be an inch below where I made it to. It could be another foot or two for all I know. We just don't know how high up they stubbed that standpipe. So anyway, it'd be nice to be able to see the rest of the way to the main. In this part of town, generally speaking, the homeowner is responsible all the way to the main lateral. Oh, anyway, very clean sewer line though. Essentially zero buildup in the line. So, and I go based off my experiences, but also based off of what the evidence is showing me, the way the line has behaved over the years. And that offset joins what I'm getting at here, right around where we stopped up. Not showing any signs of any kind of recurring problems or anything of the sort there. So that's not to say that if you were to go and bump this thing up, it sounds like, you know, if you increase the occupancy in this house a lot, especially if abusive items start going down the line, wipes, paper towels, things that don't disintegrate properly, especially if a lot of it's going down the line at once, that's about the only scenario I could ever foresee that offset playing into things, and or if a root ever does find its way through that joint. So the plus side is it's about 5.5 feet deep there should that ever happen, and it is under just grass and dirt, probably some roots to hack through, but it's not under or anything of that sort. Anyway, I did go and check to make sure. You'll see a green circle over there in the event that gets uncovered. It's one of those spots there where you about need a pickaxe to get through the ground. And once I get to a certain depth there, I back off. I've done my darndest on that thing, and I poured a couple gallons of water on it. The first bucket absorbed in nice. The second one, the clay is so hardened up, it just, eventually it'll absorb into the dirt, but it's going to probably take until tomorrow morning before that happens. So it's a tough thing to get through. So anyway, line is functioning properly at this time, all the way out to at least 170 feet with no indication of flow problems beyond that point. Again, as the line is very clean, we are now going backwards. You can see no diameter change going backwards. It's very obvious when we hit those. You do have some level of standing water here going back into the home. This right here, honestly, is more concerning than the offset is, in my opinion, at 170 feet. The closer in standing water gets to the house, the more likely it is to result in a backup if a blockage occurs. Going back to what I was saying earlier, so this right here is where the line finally necks down to 3-inch pipe right there. So about almost 20 feet back into the house. The standing water here is under the home, so it's not something I can easily locate, but it is inside the foundation. The plumber can figure that out very easily just by putting a level on it. That belly goes back in here. About 9 feet. So, and if it is going to be a high occupancy home, that right there is a spot where you're more likely to get a blockage, honestly, than the offset is, at least at this point in time. Assuming a root intrusion never gets through that joint or things don't progress. My camera right now is kind of upside down. You're just shy of an inch of water there. Because of its proximity to the home, because it's inside there, that's actually a little bit under where I typically start recommending repairs. I usually start doing that around the inch mark. But going back to what I was saying earlier, if you got a blockage at 170 feet, you develop an unbelievable amount of head pressure filling up that much pipe with water. Not a lot of blockages can handle that without breaking loose, unless it's a lot of improper stuff, versus a blockage that happens just inside the foundation wall. If water starts building up behind that thing, it doesn't take very long before that water starts to reach fixtures. So anyway, that's one there I would like to see repaired, although I'm not seeing tons of evidence of blockages occurring there. There is more buildup in that spot there than I've seen in the rest of the line. So that's about from the foundation wall back in about 9 feet approximately. I'm going to do something here real quick before I pack up all the way. All right, we're zeroed back out again. Right here on this turn, so it's from about 3 feet. Yeah, that's definitely inside the home there, or under it. It's all the other reason I'm recommending that be corrected is because of the fact there are multiple turns in that area. Turns are natural pinch points in a sewer line. It's where things slow down. So from about 3 to 10 feet, almost 11 feet there, at its worst point, you've got about an inch of water. Right there at about 21 feet going back, you hit 3-inch pipe, and then you're going to be in 3-inch pipe all the way back to the back end of the line. Sewer lines like this, by and large, run pretty darn straight. And that right there is, we're going up a vertical. That's going to be either a vent and or the base of a toilet. We're 60 feet in. That's putting us on pretty much on the far side of the house here. About as far as the plumbing goes for the most part, as far as main lines go anyway. Anyway, a lot of times the crawl space stuff, not been down there, I can't guarantee this, but sometimes it's just related to support strapping, stretching over time. Some of these bellies are as simple as basically adjusting giant zip ties in the crawl space that support the sewer line. It might be settled sitting on the ground too. Anyway, in my experience here, you know, if I were to correct something I've seen in the line, that right there is probably the most concerning spot. Under proper normal usage with a smaller household, fairly unlikely to lead to problems, but high occupancy home, you know, if you have a lot of kids and or, you know, something like a care home, for instance, especially if there are employees in the building you can't control, might be flushing things like wipes down the line, that's where I would especially want that corrected. Anyhow, overall, nowhere in the line do we have any blockages, obstructions, or anything of the sort. So line is functioning at this time. It is draining slower than it should through that bellied area we just went through. All the standing water beyond that on the exterior is all extremely minor. It's nothing I'd ever recommend fixing. It's the kind of standing water that in order to correct it, you'd be redoing the entire sewer line to accomplish it because it's sporadically throughout the line. You've got tight tolerances to work with on this line because of its length and the depths you're working with. So if you do end up doing any kind of installs, repairs, or additions onto the home, you're running new branches of pipe, I do highly recommend and or any repairs on bellies and things of that nature, rescoping to check the work, and you want to do any of that scoping after trenches are closed to check for settling problems.